In the heart of the Cascade Mountains, where the ancient fir trees whispered secrets to the wind and the rivers carved relentless paths through granite, young Emily Harper, a spirited 12-year-old with freckles dancing across her nose and a backpack stuffed with dreams, embarked on what was supposed to be an unforgettable camping adventure with her Uncle Jack. Jack Thompson, her mother's older brother, was a rugged outdoorsman in his mid-40s, with a beard as wild as the wilderness he loved and stories from his days as a park ranger that could captivate anyone around a campfire. Emily's parents had trusted him implicitly. After all, he had taken her on smaller hikes before, teaching her how to identify edible berries, build a shelter from fallen branches, and respect the untamed beauty of nature. This trip, planned meticulously over family dinners, was to be their grandest yet, a week-long trek into the remote backcountry of the North Cascades National Park, starting from the trailhead near Ross Lake and winding through alpine meadows blooming with wildflowers in the late summer sun. Emily's excitement was palpable as they loaded up Jack's old Jeep with tents, sleeping bags, freeze-dried meals, and a first aid kit that Jack joked was overkill but necessary. "Nature's beautiful, kiddo, but she doesn't play favorites," he'd say with a wink, his voice gravelly from years of shouting over roaring waterfalls. As they drove the winding roads from Seattle, Emily pressed her face against the window, watching the urban sprawl give way to dense forests, her mind racing with visions of spotting black bears or eagles soaring overhead. Jack tuned the radio to classic rock, belting out lyrics to songs from his youth, making Emily giggle and join in despite not knowing half the words. They arrived at the trailhead just as the sun dipped low, casting golden hues over the peaks, and after registering with the rangers, Jack insisting on every safety protocol, they shouldered their packs and set off into the wild. The first day was pure magic. They hiked along the Diablo Lake Trail, the turquoise waters shimmering like a jewel below them, stopping for lunch at a viewpoint where Emily sketched the landscape in her notebook, her pencils flying across the page. Jack shared tales of Native American legends about the mountains, how the spirits of the land protected those who respected it, and Emily hung on every word, feeling like an explorer in her own right. As evening fell, they pitched their tent in a secluded clearing near Thunder Creek, the sound of rushing water lulling them as they roasted marshmallows over a crackling fire. Jack taught her constellations, pointing out Orion's belt and the Big Dipper, while Emily confided her dreams of becoming a wildlife photographer. Little did they know, as the stars twinkled above, that this idyllic beginning was the prelude to a nightmare that would haunt their family for years. The second day dawned crisp and clear, with mist rising from the forest floor like ghosts awakening. Emily woke to the aroma of coffee brewing on their portable stove, Jack already up and mapping their route on a worn topo map. "Today we push deeper, into the real heart of the Cascades," he said, his eyes alight with adventure. They broke camp efficiently, Emily learning to roll her sleeping bag tightly and secure it to her pack, feeling a surge of independence. The trail grew steeper, winding through old-growth forests where massive Douglas firs towered like sentinels, their trunks moss-covered and roots snaking across the path like veins of the earth. Birds chirped melodies unfamiliar to Emily's city ears, warblers and thrushes, and occasionally, the rustle of underbrush hinted at hidden wildlife. They crossed log bridges over babbling streams, Jack steadying Emily with a firm hand when the woods slicked with dew. By midday, they reached a high meadow carpeted in lupins and paintbrush flowers, a riot of purple and red that made Emily gasp in delight. She pulled out her disposable camera, a gift from her parents, and snapped photos of everything. A butterfly alighting on a bloom, Jack posing dramatically with his hiking poles, the distant snow-capped peaks of Forbidden and El Dorado. Lunch was simple, peanut butter sandwiches and trail mix, but shared in that paradise, it tasted like a feast. As they continued, the terrain turned more challenging. Switchbacks climbed relentlessly, and Emily's legs burned, but Jack encouraged her with stories of his own youthful struggles, like the time he got lost in the Olympics and survived on berries for a day. "Resilience, kid. That's what the wild teaches you," he grunted, helping her over a rocky outcrop. They encountered few other hikers, the remoteness adding to the thrill, though Jack noted the weather forecast on his satellite phone. Clear skies ahead, but always be prepared. Late afternoon brought them to their second campsite near a pristine alpine lake, its waters so still they mirrored the surrounding ridges perfectly. Emily skipped stones across the surface while Jack set up the tent, and as dusk settled, they built a fire and cooked dehydrated chili, the spices warming them against the cooling air. That night, under a blanket of stars unobscured by city lights, Emily felt truly alive, journaling her thoughts by flashlight. This is the best trip ever. Uncle Jack is like a superhero. Jack, meanwhile, checked their gear one last time, his ranger instincts ever vigilant, unaware that forces beyond their control were stirring in the shadows of the peaks. On the third day, subtle signs of unease began to creep in, though neither Emily nor Jack could pinpoint them at first. The morning started routinely enough: oatmeal for breakfast, pack-shouldered, and onward along the Pacific Crest Trail segment that veered into even wilder territory. The air grew thinner as they ascended, and Emily marveled at the changing flora, from lush ferns below to hardy alpine plants clinging to life amid rocks. Jack pointed out animal tracks, deer, perhaps a cougar, and taught her how to read them, emphasizing caution.
Eyes
Open, ears sharp, he advised, his tone light but laced with seriousness. They paused at a viewpoint overlooking the Skagit Valley, the river a silver thread far below, and Emily felt a pang of homesickness mixed with exhilaration. As the day wore on, the weather shifted unexpectedly. Clouds gathered like uninvited guests, and a light drizzle began, turning the trail muddy and slick. Jack pulled out ponchos from his pack, wrapping Emily in hers with a reassuring smile. Just a passing shower. Keeps things interesting. But the rain persisted, soaking through despite their gear, and by early afternoon, they were drenched and chilled. Emily's enthusiasm waned, her sneakers squelching with each step, but Jack kept spirits high with jokes and promises of hot cocoa at camp. They detoured slightly to avoid a washed-out section, Jack consulting his compass and map, his experience guiding them safely. Yet, as they descended into a narrow canyon flanked by sheer cliffs, an odd silence fell over the forest. No birdsong, no rustling leaves, just the patter of rain and their labored breaths. Emily shivered, not just from cold, and clutched Jack's hand tighter. "It's like the woods are holding their breath," she whispered, and Jack nodded, scanning the surroundings with narrowed eyes. They reached their intended campsite by a rushing creek swollen from the rain, but the ground was too saturated for a fire, so they ate cold rations in the tent, huddling for warmth. Jack tried to radio for a weather update, but static filled the airwaves, perhaps the storm interfering. As night enveloped them, the rain intensified into a downpour, thunder rumbling in the distance like a warning. Emily fell asleep to Jack's soft humming, but he stayed awake, listening to the night, a vague unease gnawing at him that he couldn't shake. The fourth day dawned gray and foreboding, the rain having tapered to a mist but leaving the world sodden and muted. Emily woke with a sniffle, her nose stuffy from the damp, but Jack brewed hot tea and assured her it was nothing a good hike wouldn't cure. They packed up quickly, eager to move and generate heat, following the trail upstream along the creek, which had risen overnight, its waters turbulent and frothy. The path narrowed, hugging the canyon wall, and Jack led the way, testing each step on the slippery rocks. Emily followed close, her pack feeling heavier with wet clothes, but the adventure still sparked in her eyes. Mid-morning, they came upon a fallen tree blocking the trail, a massive cedar uprooted by the storm, and Jack scouted a way around, bushwhacking through thick undergrowth. "Stay right behind me, he called, machete in hand to clear vines. The detour took longer than expected, thorns snagging their clothes, and by the time they rejoined the trail, fatigue set in. Lunch was hasty, under a rocky overhang for shelter, where Emily shared her worries about the weather. Jack hugged her, promising they'd turn back if it worsened, but his own mind raced with calculations, distance to the next ranger station, remaining supplies. As they pressed on, the canyon deepened, cliffs rising like giants on either side, and a faint roar grew louder. a waterfall ahead, marking the trail's crux. They approached cautiously, the spray misting their faces, and Jack rigged a rope for safety across the narrow ledge. "One at a time, I'll go first," he said, demonstrating the crossing. Emily watched, heart pounding, as he made it safely. Then it was her turn. Halfway across, a gust of wind whipped through the canyon, and she slipped, her foot dangling over the abyss. Jack's shout echoed as he pulled her to safety, both trembling from a close call. That's enough risks for today, he decided, scouting a nearby ledge for an impromptu camp. They set up the tent precariously, the waterfall's roar drowning all else, and as evening fell, Jack noticed Emily's cough worsening, fetching medicine from the kit. Dinner was sparse, morale low, and that night, as winds howled, strange sounds pierced the din, cracks like breaking branches, or perhaps something more sinister. Jack dismissed them as the storm, but deep down, doubt crept in. By the fifth day, the line between adventure and peril had blurred irreparably. The mist hung thick, visibility poor, and Emily's illness had escalated, feverish, weak, her cough rattling. Jack, masking his panic, decided they must head back, prioritizing her health over the trip. They broke camp at first light, retracing steps down the canyon, but the creek had flooded parts of the trail, forcing wades through knee-deep water. Emily clung to Jack, her small frame shivering, and he carried her pack along with his, muscles straining. "We're almost there, kiddo. Just think of home," he encouraged, though the way seemed longer, disorienting in the fog. Hours passed, the landscape unfamiliar. Had they taken a wrong turn? Jack checked his compass repeatedly, but magnetic anomalies in the mountains could play tricks. They stopped for rest under an overhang, Jack forcing Emily to eat despite her protests, his mind flashing to emergency protocols. As afternoon waned, a sudden rockslide rumbled nearby, sending boulders crashing down the slope, narrowly missing them. Adrenaline surged, and Jack scooped Emily up, running for cover. In the chaos, they veered off trail, into denser woods, the fog thickening like a veil. "Uncle Jack, I'm scared," Emily whimpered, and he held her tight, promising rescue. But as dusk approached, exhaustion overtook them. They huddled in a makeshift shelter of branches, Jack activating the emergency beacon on his satellite phone, signal weak, but sent. Night fell pitch black, the forest alive with unseen movements, twigs snapping, leaves rustling, and Emily's fever dreams mingled with reality. Jack stayed vigilant, whispering stories to soothe her, but fear gripped him. What if help didn't come? In the dead of night, a low growl echoed, animal or imagination, and then silence, profound, unnatural. By morning, they were gone, vanished without trace, their campsite abandoned, packs left behind as if swallowed by the earth itself. The search began immediately when Jack's emergency signal pinged weekly before cutting out, alerting rangers who mobilized teams from the National Park Service. Emily's parents, Sarah and Tom Harper, received the call at dawn, their world shattering as they rushed to the trailhead, joining volunteers, K-9 units, and helicopters scouring the Cascades. Days turned to weeks, headlines blaring, "Girl and Uncle Missing in Mountains," with photos of Emily's bright smile and Jack's rugged profile plastered everywhere. Searchers combed the canyon, finding the abandoned tent and packs near the waterfall, but no signs of struggle. Footprints washed away, demonstrating the crossing. Emily watched, heart pounding, as he made it safely. Then it was her turn. Halfway across, a gust of wind whipped through the canyon, and she slipped, her foot dangling over the abyss. Jack's shout echoed as he pulled her to safety, both trembling from a close call. That's enough risks for today, he decided, scouting a nearby ledge for an impromptu camp. They set up the tent precariously, the waterfall's roar drowning all else, and as evening fell, Jack noticed Emily's cough worsening, fetching medicine from the kit. Dinner was sparse, morale low, and that night, as winds howled, strange sounds pierced the din, cracks like breaking branches, or perhaps something more sinister. Jack dismissed them as the storm, but deep down, doubt crept in. By the fifth day, The line between adventure and peril had blurred irreparably. The mist hung thick, visibility poor, and Emily's illness had escalated, feverish, weak, her cough rattling. Jack, masking his panic, decided they must head back, prioritizing her health over the trip. They broke camp at first light, retracing steps down the canyon, but the creek had flooded parts of the trail, forcing wades through knee-deep water. Emily clung to Jack, her small frame shivering, and he carried her pack along with his, muscles straining. "We're almost there, kiddo. Just think of home," he encouraged, though the way seemed longer, disorienting in the fog. Hours passed, the landscape unfamiliar. Had they taken a wrong turn? Jack checked his compass repeatedly, but magnetic anomalies in the mountains could play tricks. They stopped for rest under an overhang, Jack forcing Emily to eat despite her protests, his mind flashing to emergency protocols. As afternoon waned, a sudden rockslide rumbled nearby, sending boulders crashing down the slope, narrowly missing them. Adrenaline surged, and Jack scooped Emily up, running for cover. In the chaos, they veered off trail, into denser woods, the fog thickening like a veil. "Uncle Jack, I'm scared," Emily whimpered, and he held her tight, promising rescue. But as dusk approached, exhaustion overtook them. They huddled in a makeshift shelter of branches, Jack activating the emergency beacon on his satellite phone, signal weak, but sent. Night fell pitch black, the forest alive with unseen movements, twigs snapping, leaves rustling, and Emily's fever dreams mingled with reality. Jack stayed vigilant, whispering stories to soothe her, but fear gripped him. What if help didn't come? In the dead of night, a low growl echoed, animal or imagination, and then silence, profound, unnatural. By morning, they were gone, vanished without trace, their campsite abandoned, packs left behind as if swallowed by the earth itself. The search began immediately when Jack's emergency signal pinged weakly before cutting out, alerting rangers who mobilized teams from the National Park Service. Emily's parents, Sarah and Tom Harper, received the call at dawn, their world shattering as they rushed to the trailhead, joining volunteers, K-9 units, and helicopters scouring the Cascades. Days turned to weeks, headlines blaring, "Girl and Uncle Missing in Mountains," with photos of Emily's bright smile and Jack's rugged profile plastered everywhere. Searchers combed the canyon, finding the abandoned tent and packs near the waterfall, but no signs of struggle. Footprints washed away. By rain, no blood, no clues. Theories abounded. Animal attack, hypothermia, a fall into the creek. Psychics and amateur sleuths flooded in, but official investigation stalled, the vast wilderness yielding nothing. The Harpers clung to hope, organizing vigils and fundraisers, but as months passed, grief set in. Emily's room preserved like a shrine, Jack's Jeep gathering dust. 5 years later, the case cold, a base jumper named Alex Rivera, thrill-seeker with a helmet cam, leaped from a peak overlooking the canyon, his parachute deploying as he glided down. His footage, reviewed later, captured something chilling in the depths below, a flash of color, perhaps fabric, and shapes that looked eerily human, hidden in a crevice long overlooked. The discovery reignited the mystery, pulling the Harpers back into the spotlight as experts analyzed the video, whispering of survival or something far darker lurking in the Cascade shadows. Base jumpers footage spread like wildfire across the internet, reigniting a frenzy of speculation and hope that had long lain dormant in the hearts of Emily Harper's family and the small community that had rallied around them. Alex Rivera, a wiry 20-something with a penchant for adrenaline and a YouTube channel boasting thousands of followers, had no idea his routine jump would become a catalyst for revisiting one of the Cascades' most perplexing mysteries. His helmet cam, strapped securely to capture the breathtaking descent from a jagged peak above the Skagit Valley, recorded the usual, sweeping vistas of snow-dusted ridges, the turquoise ribbon of Ross Lake, and the endless sea of evergreens stretching to the horizon. But at the 47-second mark, as he banked left to avoid a rocky outcrop, the camera caught something anomalous, a fleeting glimpse of what looked like a tattered blue fabric, possibly a jacket, wedged in a narrow crevice some 300 feet below the main trail. More chilling were the shapes nearby, two indistinct forms, humanoid but blurred, nestled in the shadows of the cliff face, where no searcher had ventured in the 5 years since Emily and Jack vanished. Alex, reviewing the footage that evening in his Bellingham apartment, froze, replaying the clip until his eyes burned. "This can't be real," he muttered, zooming in on pixelated forms that refused to clarify. Were they rocks, branches, or something else? He uploaded the clip to X, captioning it, "Found something weird in the Cascades. Missing hiker's case." Within hours, the post exploded, tagged with #HarperMystery, drawing thousands of comments ranging from excited theories to outright skepticism. Amateur sleuths dissected every frame, some claiming the shapes were bodies, others arguing optical illusions or old climbing gear. The Harpers, now living with the quiet ache of unresolved loss, were blindsided when a local reporter knocked on their door, showing them Alex's post on her phone. Sarah Harper, Emily's mother, clutched the device, her breath catching as she saw the blue fabric. Emily's jacket was blue, a bright cerulean she'd picked out herself. Tom, her father, was more reserved, his engineer's mind wary of false hope, but even he couldn't dismiss the chill that ran through him. "We need to get out there," Sarah insisted, her voice trembling with a mix of dread and determination. By the next morning, the story had hit national news, with outlets like CNN and the Seattle Times running headlines. "Base Jumper's video may hold clue to 2020 Cascades disappearance." Park rangers, under pressure from renewed public interest, organized a new search team, this time equipped with drones and thermal imaging, targeting the crevice Alex's camera had inadvertently revealed. Volunteers flooded the park, including seasoned climbers who knew the treacherous cliffs better than most, while the Harpers, now in their late 40s, joined the effort, their faces etched with 5 years of sleepless nights. Alex, thrust into the spotlight, guided rangers to the exact coordinates of his jump, his GoPro footage mapped against topographic charts to pinpoint the crevice's location, a spot so inaccessible it had been overlooked during the initial searches, hidden by an overhang and dense foliage. The journey to the crevice was no small feat, requiring a team of expert climbers to rappel down a near-vertical cliff face, their ropes swaying in the mountain winds. Sarah and Tom waited at a base camp near the trailhead, surrounded by reporters, search and rescue volunteers, and a handful of psychics who'd shown up uninvited, claiming visions of Emily's spirit. The climbers, led by a grizzled veteran named Maria Cortez, descended with precision, their radios crackling with updates. "We're at 200 feet. Visibility's low, lots of mist," Maria reported, her voice steady despite the perilous drop. Below, the crevice loomed, a jagged scar in the rock barely wide enough for a person to squeeze through. As the team reached it, they found the blue fabric first, a shredded jacket, unmistakably Emily's, identified by a custom patch she'd sewn on with her initials, YH. Sarah, hearing this over the radio, collapsed into Tom's arms, sobbing, while he stared blankly at the mountains, his mind racing with possibilities. The climbers pressed deeper, their headlamps illuminating the crevice's interior, where they found more, a weathered backpack, its straps frayed but bearing Jack's monogram, and scattered items, a broken flashlight, a waterlogged journal, its pages illegible from years of exposure. But the shapes from the footage, the ones that had sparked so much debate, were not bodies. They were mannequins of all things. 2 life-sized figures dressed in tattered hiking clothes, positioned as if sitting against the crevice wall. The discovery sent a wave of confusion through the team. "What the hell is this?" one climber muttered, his voice echoing over the radio. Maria, ever pragmatic, cataloged the find, noting the mannequins' eerie realism, hand-stitched clothing, weathered boots, even wigs matted with dirt. Were they a prank, an art installation, or something more sinister? The team bagged the evidence, hauling it up with a jacket and backpack, while drones scanned the crevice for anything else. Bones, perhaps, or signs of struggle. Nothing else turned up, but the mannequins raised more questions than answers. X exploded with theories. A serial killer's macabre display, a cult ritual, or simply debris from a long-forgotten stunt. The Harpers, grappling with the discovery, refused to believe Emily and Jack were gone for good. "That jacket means she was there," Sarah insisted to a reporter, her eyes fierce. "If she was there, we can find her." Tom, though, began to wonder if the mountains were hiding a truth too dark to face, his analytical mind turning to patterns, other disappearances in the Cascades, whispers of unexplained phenomena in these wilds. Back in Seattle, the Harpers' home became a hub for investigators, amateur detectives, and well-meaning neighbors dropping off casseroles. The mannequins were sent to a lab for forensic analysis, revealing little beyond synthetic fibers and traces of local soil, but the jacket and backpack offered more. Emily's jacket had traces of blood, not enough to confirm death, but enough to suggest injury. DNA tests confirmed it was hers, reigniting Sarah's hope that her daughter had survived whatever ordeal befell them. Jack's backpack held a surprise, a small, encrypted memory card tucked into a hidden pocket, missed in the initial chaos of the discovery. A tech specialist cracked it, revealing audio files, Jack's voice, recorded in the days before their disappearance. The first file was mundane, Jack narrating their hike for Emily's future scrapbook. Day 3, kiddos killing it on the trail. Saw a bald eagle today. M's over the moon. But later files grew frantic. Day 5, storms bad. M's sick, fever's up. Trails flooded. Think we're off course. The final recording, time-stamped hours before the emergency beacon, was chilling. Something's out here. Not an animal. Too deliberate. M's asleep, but I hear it moving. If anyone finds this, the audio cut off abruptly, static filling the void. The Harpers listened in their living room, Sarah clutching Tom's hand, tears streaming as Jack's voice echoed from 5 years past. The recordings shifted the investigation's tone. Rangers now considered foul play, though no suspects emerged. The Cascades had seen other vanishings, hikers, climbers, even a pilot whose plane wreckage was never found, and some locals whispered of mountain spirits, or worse, though officials dismissed such talk. Alex Rivera, now a reluctant celebrity, joined the Harpers at a press conference, urging anyone with information to come forward. His ex-following skyrocketed, but he felt uneasy, haunted by the crevice's eerie stillness during his jump. Meanwhile, a group of independent investigators, fueled by ex-posts and true crime podcasts, began combing park records, uncovering a pattern, at least 6 other disappearances in the same region over 2 decades, all near that canyon, all with minimal evidence left behind. One theory gained traction online, a reclusive survivalist, perhaps a former ranger gone rogue, living off-grid and preying on hikers. No proof existed, but the idea took root, especially when a retired ranger admitted to hearing odd stories about the area during his tenure. The Harpers, desperate for closure, funded a private search, hiring trackers and a psychic who claimed to sense Emily's presence beyond the veil. Sarah clung to every lead, while Tom, ever skeptical, pored over maps, trying to reverse-engineer Jack's final route. The investigation took a surreal turn when a cryptic message appeared on X, posted from an anonymous account. The Cascades keep their secrets. Check the caves below the falls. The post included coordinates eerily close to the crevice, prompting rangers to launch a new expedition. This time, cavers joined the team, squeezing through subterranean passages. Beneath the waterfall where Emily and Jack were last seen, the caves, unmapped and treacherous, revealed nothing at first, just damp rock and bat guano. But deep within, a caver found scratches on a wall, forming what looked like initials. YH plus JT. The discovery electrified the Harpers, though experts cautioned they could be natural marks or vandalism. Sarah, undeterred, saw it as a sign her daughter had left a message. The cavers also found a small, rusted knife, its handle engraved with a symbol resembling a crescent moon, a detail that matched nothing in Jack or Emily's gear but echoed a similar find in another Cascades disappearance case from 2008. The knife was sent for analysis, while online sleuths linked the crescent symbol to rumors of a secretive group operating in the Pacific Northwest, though no concrete evidence surfaced. The Harpers faced a barrage of media, some outlets sensationalizing the Cascades curse, while others accused Alex of staging the footage for clout, a claim he vehemently denied, his raw fear during interviews convincing most of his sincerity. Public interest waned as weeks passed without new leads, but the Harpers pressed on, their savings dwindling on private investigators and drone sweeps. Sarah began hiking the trails herself, retracing her daughter's steps, calling Emily's name into the wind, while Tom scoured X for clues, engaging with users who shared grainy photos of suspicious figures in the park. One night, a package arrived at their doorstep, no return address, containing a single photo of the Cascades at dusk, with a faint, blurry figure in the foreground that resembled Jack's silhouette. A note scrawled on the back read, "They're still here." The Harpers turned it over to police, who traced the paper to a Seattle print shop but hit a dead end. The photo, whether a cruel hoax or a genuine clue, reignited their resolve, pushing them deeper into a mystery that seemed to twist further with every step. 5 years after Emily and Jack vanished, the Cascades remained as enigmatic as ever, their peaks hiding truths no one could fully grasp. The Harpers, now shadows of their former selves, lived in a liminal space between hope and despair, their home filled with maps, case files, and Emily's untouched sketchbooks. The base jumpers footage had opened a door, but it led only to more questions: mannequins, a knife, cryptic messages, and a trail of vanishings stretching back decades. Rangers tightened park security, installing more trail cameras, but the wilderness was vast, untamed, and indifferent. Online, the #HarperMystery hashtag persisted, with some users claiming sightings of a young woman resembling Emily in nearby towns, though none panned out. The Harpers held a memorial on the 5th anniversary, releasing lanterns into the night sky above Ross Lake, their glow reflecting on the water like stars. Sarah whispered a prayer, vowing never to stop searching, while Tom gripped her hand, silently vowing the same. Somewhere in the Cascades, the truth lay buried, whether in a crevice, a cave, or the heart of someone who knew more than they'd ever tell. The mountains, as Jack once said, didn't play favorites, and their secrets, it seemed, would endure. As the investigation into Emily and Jack's disappearance evolved from a cold case revival to a full-blown enigma, whispers of a larger conspiracy began to circulate among the dedicated online communities, dissecting every detail on platforms like Reddit's r/unsolved mysteries and X's #Cascades Curse threads. The Harpers, Sarah and Tom, found themselves at the center of this digital storm, their inboxes flooded with tips ranging from the plausible to the paranoid. One particularly persistent user, going by the handle @MountainGhostHunter, claimed to have hiked the same trails years earlier and encountered strange figures near the waterfall, shadowy silhouettes that vanished when approached. Sarah, ever the optimist in her grief, reached out to this anonymous tipster, arranging a virtual meeting where the user described hearing unnatural echoes and finding peculiar markings on trees, like the crescent moon symbol etched into the knife from the caves. Tom, skeptical but thorough, cross-referenced these claims with park records, discovering that @MountainGhostHunter's real identity was a former logger named Elias Crow, who had lost his own brother in a similar Cascades incident a decade prior. Elias agreed to meet the Harpers in person at a diner in Concrete, Washington, a sleepy town gateway to the North Cascades. Over greasy burgers and black coffee, he spread out faded maps on the table, his gnarled fingers tracing routes that overlapped with Jack's planned trek. "It's not just bad luck," Elias growled, his voice low to avoid eavesdroppers. "There's a network out there, poachers, maybe smugglers using the backcountry to move goods across the border. They don't like intruders." Sarah's eyes widened, connecting dots to the mannequins, perhaps decoys to mislead searchers or markers for hidden caches. Tom pressed for evidence, and Elias produced a grainy photo from his phone, taken in 2018, showing a makeshift camp deep in the woods, with figures in camouflage gathered around a fire, one holding what looked like a satellite device. "I steered clear after that," Elias admitted. But your girl's jacket in that crevice? That's no accident. The Harpers left the meeting shaken, Sarah clutching the photo printout like a lifeline, while Tom began digging into Border Patrol reports, uncovering a spike in undocumented crossings in the Cascades around the time of Emily's disappearance. Could Jack and Emily have stumbled upon something illicit, leading to their abduction rather than a natural mishap? Energized by Elias's revelations, the Harpers enlisted a private investigator named Lena Vasquez, a no-nonsense ex-FBI agent with a reputation for cracking wilderness cases. Lena, in her early 50s with sharp eyes and a ponytail streaked with gray, dove into the case files, starting with the audio recordings from Jack's memory card. She enhanced the final file, isolating background noises beneath the static, faint voices, perhaps murmuring in what sounded like coded language, and a mechanical whir that Lena identified as a drone engine. This wasn't a lone wolf, she told the Harpers in their living room, projecting spectrograms on her laptop. Drones suggest organization, surveillance, maybe drug drops. Sarah recalled Jack mentioning odd lights in the sky during their trip, dismissed as stars or planes, but now it fit a pattern. Lena coordinated with rangers to deploy their own drones over the canyon, capturing high-res images that revealed anomalies. Faint trails branching off the main path, concealed by brush, leading to what appeared to be abandoned structures. Old mining shacks from the gold rush era, long forgotten on maps. A ground team investigated, finding one shack with fresh signs of habitation. Food wrappers dated post-disappearance, a sleeping bag, and walls scrawled with more crescent symbols. Inside a rusted locker, they unearthed a journal, not Emily's, but belonging to an unknown author. Entries cryptic. Intruders at Falls, relocated. Assets secure. The Harpers, briefed via video call, felt a surge of vindication, mixed with terror. Was intruders referring to Emily and Jack? Lena theorized a human trafficking ring or black market operation using the Cascades' remoteness, with the mannequins as a twisted warning or distraction. She leaked select details to X under a pseudonymous account to crowdsource more leads. Responses poured in, a hiker claiming to have found a similar symbol carved into a tree near Mount Baker, another user posting coordinates of a ghost camp they'd avoided. One tip stood out, a retired border agent recalling a 2020 operation that busted a smuggling ring, but key suspects escaped into the mountains. They had insiders, the agent messaged. Park staff, maybe. This cast suspicion on Jack's old ranger colleagues, prompting Lena to interview them discreetly. The probe deepened when Lena uncovered financial irregularities in the park's records, unexplained equipment purchases around the disappearance date, including satellite phones and climbing gear, funneled through a shell company linked to a Vancouver-based import firm. Tom, using his engineering background, traced the company's owners to a shadowy figure named Victor Kane, a reclusive entrepreneur with ties to logging and mining interests in the Pacific Northwest. Victor's public persona was that of a philanthropist, donating to conservation causes, but deeper digging revealed lawsuits from indigenous groups accusing him of illegal land grabs in the Cascades. Sarah, fueled by maternal fury, confronted Victor at a gala in Seattle, slipping past security with a press badge forged by Lena. "What do you know about my daughter?" she demanded, cornering him by the bar. Victor, a tall man with silver hair and a predatory smile, feigned ignorance, but his eyes flickered. "Tragedies happen in the wild, Mrs. Harper. My condolences." Later that night, the Harpers' home was burglarized. Nothing stolen, but files rifled through. A clear message. Lena ramped up security, installing cameras, while the family relocated temporarily to a safe house. Meanwhile, Alex Rivera, the base jumper, received anonymous threats via XDMs. Stop digging or join them. Terrified but committed, Alex shared his own findings, a secondary analysis of his footage revealing a glint of metal in the crevice, possibly a hidden camera. Drones returned to the site, recovering a weathered trail cam, its memory card intact. Footage from 2020 showed Emily and Jack passing by, then hours later, masked figures dragging what looked like unconscious bodies into the underbrush. The Harpers watched in horror, Sarah collapsing at the sight of her daughter's limp form. They're alive or were, Lena said grimly. The figures' builds matched descriptions from Elias's photo, solidifying the smuggling theory. Rangers escalated to federal involvement, FBI agents swarming the park, but Victor Kane vanished, his private jet logged departing for Mexico. With federal resources in play, the search expanded beyond the crevice and caves, employing ground-penetrating radar and cadaver dogs trained for live scents. A breakthrough came during a sweep of the old mining shacks. In a concealed basement, agents found a cache of documents, ledgers detailing shipments coded as wildlife, but quantities suggested human cargo. Among them, a photo of Emily, time-stamped days after the disappearance, her face bruised but alive, beside Jack in restraints. The Harpers, viewing the evidence under heavy guard, wept with relief and rage. "We have to find them," Tom urged the lead agent, a stern woman named Agent Reyes. The ledgers pointed to a network spanning the U.S.-Canada border, with drop points in remote valleys. Raids ensued, netting low-level operatives who, under interrogation, confessed to relocating hikers who witnessed operations. One claimed Emily and Jack were taken to a holding site near the Chilliwack River, then transported north. "The girl was sick. They patched her up," he muttered, bargaining for leniency. Sarah clung to this, imagining Emily resilient, drawing strength from Jack's stories. The investigation traced Victor Kane to a compound in Baja, but extradition stalled amid diplomatic red tape. Meanwhile, X buzzed with leaks, users forming vigilante groups to patrol trails, though rangers warned against it. Elias Crow joined official searches, his knowledge of hidden paths invaluable, leading to another find, a buried satchel with Emily's sketchbook, pages filled with drawings of the mountains, and a final entry. "Uncle Jack says help is coming. I miss Mom and Dad." The Harpers framed a copy, a tangible link to their daughter's spirit. As months turned into another year, the case's twists multiplied, with DNA from the trail cam linking to unsolved kidnappings across the West. Agent Reyes theorized a syndicate exploiting national parks for trafficking, using drones for surveillance and mannequins as psychological ops to deter searchers. The Harpers testified in closed hearings, their story galvanizing legislation for better park monitoring. Sarah started a foundation, Echoes of the Cascades, funding searches for other missing persons, while Tom engineered prototype trail cams with AI detection. Alex Rivera produced a documentary, Captured in the Wild, premiering at Sundance, its proceeds aiding the cause. Yet closure eluded them, until a tip from a defector in Kane's organization. Emily and Jack were alive, hidden in a remote Yukon cabin, traded as leverage in a larger scheme. A joint U.S.-Canadian task force raided, but found the cabin empty, fresh footprints leading into the taiga. The Harpers, undeterred, prepared for the next chapter, their hope a flickering flame against the endless wilderness. The raid on the Yukon cabin, though yielding no captives, uncovered a treasure trove of digital breadcrumbs that propelled the investigation into uncharted territories, blending high-tech forensics with old-school detective work in a race against time and the unforgiving northern wilderness. Agent Reyes, leading the joint task force, analyzed the cabin's contents, a laptop with encrypted files, hastily abandoned supplies suggesting recent occupancy, and a map marked with routes snaking through the Klondike region toward Alaska. The laptop, cracked by FBI cyber experts, revealed emails between Victor Kane and unidentified contacts, discussing assets in code, phrases like young talent relocation and experienced guide integration that chilled the Harpers to their core. Sarah, poring over transcripts in a Vancouver hotel room under protective custody, spotted a reference to Project Evergreen, a term echoing the Cascades forests, but hinting at something more sinister. Tom, leveraging his engineering skills, reverse-engineered the map's coordinates, plotting them against satellite imagery to reveal hidden outposts, camouflaged cabins, and airstrips used for clandestine flights. Lena Vasquez, the PI, flew north to join the ground search, her boots crunching on permafrost as teams fanned out with snowmobiles and helicopters. "They're moving them," Lena theorized during a briefing, pointing to tire tracks leading to a frozen river. Kane's network is bigger than we thought, ties to international syndicates. The Harpers, restricted from the front lines for safety, monitored via secure video feeds, Sarah's nails bitten to the quick as she whispered encouragements to the void. "Hold on, Emily. We're coming." A defector's tip, corroborated by intercepted communications, led to a breakthrough. Kane's operation wasn't just smuggling drugs or artifacts, but humans, specifically coercing skilled individuals like Jack, with his ranger knowledge, into guiding illicit border crossings, while holding Emily as leverage. The thought fueled Sarah's nightmares, visions of her daughter, now 17, hardened by years of captivity, sketching escape plans in secret. Tom, channeling his grief into action, collaborated with tech volunteers on X, crowdsourcing analysis of the laptop data. One user, a cryptographer hobbyist, decoded a file revealing scheduled transfers to a compound in the Alaskan Panhandle. Reyes mobilized a cross-border strike, coordinating with Canadian Mounties and U.S. Coast Guard, but a blizzard delayed the op, tensions rising as satellite pings from a tracker, possibly implanted or attached to Jack, faded in and out. As the storm cleared, the task force descended on the Alaskan compound, a fortified lodge disguised as a hunting retreat, nestled in the Tongass National Forest where ancient Sitka spruces loomed like guardians. Choppers hovered low, agents rappelling down ropes amid swirling snow, while ground teams breached the perimeter. Gunfire erupted, Kane's guards, armed and desperate, defending their turf. Reyes, barking orders from a command van, watched body cams stream live, rooms cleared, suspects zip-tied, but no sign of Emily or Jack. In the basement, however, they found holding cells, barred rooms with cots and chains, walls etched with messages from captives past. One inscription, fresh and heartbreaking. Emily H., Year 5. Uncle says fight. Sarah, viewing the feed, gasped, tears blurring her vision as confirmation hit. They were alive, or had been recently. Interrogations of captured operatives. Yielded confessions. Emily had been schooled in survival skills, used as a scout for the syndicate, while Jack mapped routes under duress. "The kid's tough," one thug admitted. "Saved our asses in a storm once." The Harpers flew to Juneau, joining Reyes for debriefs, their hope reignited but tempered by the escape. Kane and a core group had fled with hostages via seaplane, heading toward the Pacific. Lena traced the plane's transponder to a remote island in the Alexander Archipelago, a misty realm of fjords and fog-shrouded peaks. The pursuit intensified, Coast Guard cutters slicing through waves, drones scouting ahead. Meanwhile, X lit up with #RescueHarper trending, users sharing sightings and theories, some even donating to a GoFundMe for advanced search tech. Alex Rivera, from his Seattle base, used his platform to rally drone enthusiasts, one spotting a suspicious boat near Baranof Island. The tip panned out, a yacht anchored in a hidden cove, guarded but vulnerable. Reyes planned a nighttime assault, SEALs swimming ashore under cover of darkness. The operation unfolded with surgical precision, flashbangs lighting the night as teams stormed the yacht. Chaos ensued, shouts, splashes, the crack of suppressed fire. In the hold, they found them. Emily, gaunt but defiant, huddled with Jack, whose beard was streaked gray, eyes hollow from years of torment. "Mom? Dad?" Emily whispered as agents freed them, her voice cracking with disbelief. Jack, shielding her instinctively, nodded wearily. "We made it, kiddo." Medevac shoppers whisked them to a hospital in Sitka, where the Harpers waited, hearts pounding. The reunion was a blur of tears and embraces, Sarah enveloping Emily in a hug that erased 5 years of agony, Tom clasping Jack's hand, words failing them. Doctors reported malnutrition, old injuries, but no irreversible damage. Emily's fever from that fateful day had been treated crudely, Jack's resourcefulness keeping them alive through interrogations and forced labors. Kane, captured on the yacht, spat defiance during arrest, his empire crumbling as assets froze and accomplices turned state's evidence. The Harpers spent weeks in seclusion, Emily readjusting to freedom, therapy sessions unpacking traumas, sketching not mountains but family portraits now. Jack, haunted by guilt, shared his recording's full story, how they'd witnessed a drone drop, masked men emerging from shadows, the abduction swift and professional. I fought, but they were too many, he confessed over family dinners, the Harpers' home alive again with laughter and healing. Public interest peaked, documentaries and books chronicling the saga, but the family focused inward, Emily enrolling in art school, Jack mentoring young hikers on safety. Yet shadows lingered, whispers of escaped syndicate members, anonymous threats prompting ongoing protection. Sarah founded expanded advocacy, lobbying for park reforms, while Tom developed anti-trafficking apps. The Cascades, once a place of nightmare, became a symbol of resilience, Emily hiking there again with her family, reclaiming the wild. Recovery brought revelations, Emily's memories piecing together the puzzle. The crevice where they'd hidden briefly during escape attempts, planting the jacket as a clue. The mannequins, crafted by captives as decoys under orders. The crescent symbols, a syndicate brand for marked territories. Jack elaborated on Project Evergreen, a front for exploiting natural resources via human labor, smuggling rare earth minerals alongside people. Federal trials loomed, Kane facing life sentences, his testimony exposing corrupt officials who'd looked the other way. The Harpers testified, Emily's poise on the stand inspiring nationwide, her words, "The mountains tried to swallow us, but we climbed out." Post-trial, life normalized, Emily dating a fellow artist, Jack writing a memoir, the family vacationing in safer climes. But the bond forged in adversity endured, annual Cascades pilgrimages honoring their survival. Alex's footage, once a spark, now archived as evidence, his friendship with the Harpers a silver lining. Elias Crow visited, sharing beers with Jack, two survivors toasting lost brothers. Lena closed the case file but stayed in touch, a guardian angel. As years passed, the mystery faded from headlines, but for the Harpers, it was a chapter closed, not forgotten, a testament. With the syndicate's tendrils severed by Kane's arrest and the subsequent global crackdown, the Harpers embarked on a new chapter of healing, but the scars of the Cascades ran deep, weaving through their lives like the roots of ancient cedars anchoring the mountainside. Emily, now a young woman of 17, navigated the bewildering transition from captivity to freedom with a resilience forged in the wilds. Therapy sessions in Seattle's sunlit offices unpacking layers of trauma, where she recounted fragmented memories of forced marches through snow-dusted passes, Jack's whispered encouragements keeping her spirit alive amid the syndicate's grim demands. "He taught me to track stars even in the darkest nights," she'd say, her voice steady but eyes distant, sketching constellations on napkins during family meals. Sarah, ever the nurturing force, quit her job as a teacher to homeschool Emily, tailoring lessons around art and nature studies, transforming their backyard into a mini wilderness with potted ferns and bird feeders, a safe echo of the Cascades without the peril. Tom, channeling his analytical mind, patented a wearable GPS beacon inspired by Jack's emergency signal, founding a startup that equipped hikers worldwide, royalties funding scholarships for at-risk youth in outdoor programs. Jack, recovering slower with physical therapy for old injuries sustained in escape attempts, moved in with the Harpers temporarily, his presence a bridge between past horrors and present peace. Evenings found them on the porch, sharing stories, not of abduction, but of survival. How Emily had once fashioned a sling from her shirt to mend Jack's sprained arm during a blizzard, or how they'd communicated in code through tapped messages on cabin walls. The media frenzy subsided after the trials, but occasional interviews kept their story alive. Emily becoming an advocate for missing persons, her TED Talk echoes in the silence, garnering millions of views, emphasizing vigilance in the wild. Alex Rivera, The base jumper whose footage had ignited the revival became a family friend, collaborating with Tom on adventure safety videos, his YouTube channel shifting from thrills to education. Lena Vasquez, the PI, retired but consulted occasionally, her final report a tome of syndicate intricacies that aided international law enforcement. Elias Crow, the logger-turned-ally, visited annually, swapping tales with Jack over campfires in the Harper's yard, their brotherhood a testament to shared loss and found purpose. Yet, beneath the surface calm, vigilance lingered, anonymous letters arriving sporadically, postmarked from obscure towns, hinting at loose ends in Kane's network, prompting Reyes to assign periodic check-ins. Emily's dreams still wandered the canyons, but now she woke to Sarah's comforting hugs, the nightmare receding like morning mist. As Emily reintegrated into society, enrolling in a progressive high school with flexible schedules, she discovered passions beyond survival, photography classes where she captured urban wildlife, mirroring her childhood sketches, and a volunteer role at a local animal shelter, healing through caring for strays much like she'd been. Friendships formed tentatively, classmates awed by her story, but drawn to her quiet strength. One girl